Hello and welcome back to my vlog. A little more continuing here with restoring the American dream. And to make sure I don't run out of time, I'm just going to jump right in where we left off, overlapping just a bit, one sentence. The answer is that it can't, but thanks to the vote, it tries anyway, which is why business regulation sometimes takes the form of consumerism, at other times burdens industry with totally unreasonable environmental or safety restrictions, and at still other times doles out special favors on a selective basis to companies and businessmen. The persuaders. All this manifests itself in a phenomenon called lobbying. Government regulation of business has evolved into a game of lobbying, and the playing field on a federal level is Washington, D.C. What politicians realize is that all lobbying groups represent votes, and in the case of business lobbying in particular, there are also ancillary benefits to be had, such as campaign contributions and other forms of help from powerful businessmen. It is no coincidence that the lobbying game gets bigger as the American dream diminishes. Lobbying has become such a major business in Washington that the city is overrun by lawyers. The number of attorneys and major firms in the nation's capital doubled between 1970 and 1978. Moral desires show up in the lobbying game through small groups of politically active people. The objective of these people is to persuade government to force business to abide by their opinions regarding protection of the environment, safety of workers, the size of companies, virtually an infinite number of moral beliefs with which they feel others should be compelled to go along. Notwithstanding the destruction such people have brought upon millions of individuals and upon the economy as a whole, I can, after listening to their arguments for years, forgive most of them as well-intentioned individuals who not only are uninformed, but whose vision is limited to single issues which create a distorted view of specific situations. I believe that if these people were the only regulatory problem, producers might eventually be able to cope with them. I'm sorry to say, however, that they are not the only problem. A problem that is just as bad, and perhaps worse, is that crybaby businessmen run to government to seek an edge over their competitors. As with labor fakers, virtually all businessmen are guilty to one degree or another. The result is the philosophical dilemma many businessmen have been trying to resolve for years: how to have their free enterprise cake and eat it too, i.e., how to bring about government intervention in the marketplace which favors their specific companies or industries while holding down regulation that is detrimental to their interests. When I sing the praises of capitalism, therefore, one should not take this to mean that I am praising businessmen. There are moral businessmen and immoral businessmen. There are businessmen whose operations are virtually dependent upon obtaining special favors from government. There are businessmen who reluctantly ask government for help only because everyone else is doing it. And there are businessmen who rarely seek government intervention and who, given a choice, would favor the advent of the world's first laissez-faire free enterprise society. Both small and big businesses are guilty of inviting government intervention in the free market. Small businessmen often decry the unfair advantages of big business, but to be sure, many small businessmen are just as guilty as giant corporations when it comes to government collusion. If you have ever read any literature put out by small business associations, you know that they are not asking for an end to government regulations. They are asking for less regulation of small business and more regulation of big business. This short-term expedient outlook has the same destructive effect on society as the expedient demands of welfare recipients, civil service workers, and the unemployed. Both large and small businesses are well known for their wide variety of appeals to government to step in and protect them. Fair pricing laws are an old favorite. These laws artificially keep prices high and penalize efficient competitors. Tariffs are another type of government protection which has been around for years, always helping inefficient domestic producers by forcing consumers to pay unnecessarily high prices for imported goods. While tariffs foster the impression that government is protecting workers in a particular industry, the long-term effect is not only an increase in prices, but a decrease in employment. Since tariffs force people to pay higher prices, people have less to spend on other goods and services, which results in less employment in the industries that produce such goods and services. The hidden reality is that the job protected by a government tariff is at the expense of a worker in another industry. And then there are the companies that appeal to government to keep newcomers out of their fields, claiming their industries are overcrowded. These claims are, of course, illogical, because if an industry is overcrowded, profits should be inordinately low. Therefore, why would anyone want to invest capital in such an industry? The truth of the matter is that the entrenched businesses do not want the extra competition which would force them to become more efficient and produce better products and services at lower prices. Subsidies and government loans to businesses in need are the same story. What really happens is that money is taken from efficient producers and workers to keep inefficient producers in business, all at the expense of consumers in the form of higher prices. As Henry Hazlitt has noted, it is important that antiquated, inefficient companies die out so that new, efficient companies can grow faster, i.e., so capital and labor will find their way into more modern industries. Mr. Hazlitt uses the automobile industry as an example, pointing out that if government had tried to keep the horse and buggy trade alive through subsidies, the automobile industry would have suffered, which in turn would have meant a loss of great wealth and a subsequent loss of improved living standards for all. In the case of farm subsidies, the government pays farmers not to grow crops. In 1978, the Department of Agriculture paid farmers $620 million to cover the difference between the market prices of grain and the prices set by government. When a businessman stops running to government for special favors, only then will he convince me that he really believes in capitalism. It is ironic that those businessmen who encourage government regulation of any kind use the very same tactics employed by anti-business moralists who press for safety and environmental regulations. The same moralists whose actions businessmen so deplore. Businessmen who seek government favors are, in effect, admitting that they cannot compete on the basis of their own talents, and that they therefore wish to see the free enterprise system eliminated. I hope I finished that in under my 8 minutes. If I did, then make it a great day, and bye for now.